climb the stairs up to my room and sleep away the afternoon. Like a dream, I remember when it's gone. Then you're trying to sleep, but it only comes out as young when you're trying to see the world beyond your front door.
Alexa, just pause. Thank you. There we go. Hello, everybody. So, our first live for our 10th book, I think officially our 10th book, 11th book, I don't know, I can't remember anymore, but Lord of the Flies by William Golding. What a book, right? What do you guys think? Also, I'd like to announce this is our first live done for my new phone. I got a new phone. 10th, wow, okay. Also, just want to tell everyone that Kat, the spy that she is, she snuck up to my apartment today and gave me a wrap gift, but she hung it on my door. So I didn't know what it was, and look at that. It's super cool. It's the wrap gift, because last night, if you guys didn't know, we had our wrap party. It was a lot of fun. We still have a few days left of shooting, but we had the party for the whole crew, and yeah, it's really interesting, really interesting. You don't understand this book. We'll get to that in a second. I finished my third year of nursing school. Congratulations, Kenzie Courtney. That's fantastic. Up to 6 or through. All right, I've got to be very honest with you guys. It's the last week of shooting. It has been extremely hectic, and I only got up to chapter 4. So we will be talking to chapter 4, and I will be catching up to you guys for next week. It was kind of creepy but enjoyable. Good. So let's talk about it. Let's bring it in. What do we think of the book? I want to know Piggy's real name. Me too. What do you guys think, though? What do you think of the book so far? What are your first thoughts? Give me 1 or 2 answers. Like 1 or 2 word answers. Like, I think it's great. I think it's interesting. I think it's thought-provoking. I'm reading a book called Daughter right now. You should read it. Well, we're reading this one right now. I love Piggy. I feel bad they call him that. Me too. It's complex. All right. I think it is too. Makes a lot of comments on society. That's interesting. I liked it a lot so far. I find it very interesting. How are you? Matt's Cow? I'm doing great. Thank you. Interesting. Hey, Alberto. Hi, now, Tube 3. I did not say that at all correctly. Is there going to be a season 4 of Shadowhunters? Your guess is as good as mine, but I really hope so. It's interesting, thought-provoking. I've already finished it. I can't remember what hasn't happened since chapter 4. I've read it twice. Oh my gosh, good for you. Well, whenever we dive in, give us your insight. It's super good and has a lot of symbolism. Yes, it does, Nameless Mouthy. Read it in high school, liked it. I read most of it in high school, liked most of it. Makes you question sanity and following the speaker. Awesome. Ooh, we have a thumbs down for Jack. Interesting. Find it strange that there are no girls. That is interesting. We'll look up to that for the next live. Such a good book. I'm glad you're enjoying it. Literal Angel of Darkness. I love this book, but I'm not sure I agree with Golding's presumptions about society. Or assumptions about society. So silly right here. Oh, thank you very much. I think it's an all-boys school. It is an all-boys school. I think that might harken back to Golding's personal experience. It might harken back to an easier way to change societies because then there's a lack of comment on the differences between sexes, and it keeps it all on an even plane. I think that's also one of the things in choosing to make it only boys is that you don't have to worry about that other relationship that might develop. Today you are radiant. Thank you. Did I sleep well? I went to bed very late. We had the rap party last night, but I had a lot of fun. Watched the film in class. It was strange. Didn't know it was going. Probably 1 or 2 more. This sounds effing awesome. What book is it? The Lord of the Flies. I think there's an all-girls version in production right now. Oh, interesting. Girls are too smart to end up in a situation like that. Okay, well, we're not going to be saying people are smarter than others, but I would agree. I love to see how happy you are. You're so proud. Oh, thank you. How's my day going? It's going very well. I just cooked. I had some coffee. It was great. Amazing book, stresses me out. This book is a good example of politics and leadership and how it's not always the smartest person that's going to get in charge. It's different. It's also how society, what priorities society wants in its leaders. They don't want someone like Piggy who's compassionate and kind and has a lot of good ideas. They want someone who looks like they can control, someone who's, we'll get into that. I think he only chose boys because of the gender roles so prominent back then. Boys were go-getters and more active and aggressive. Girls back then were taught to be gentle and follow traditional rules. True. I think that's definitely one of the things. I want to look up when this book was written so we can look more into that. I think that's very interesting. Is there really a beastie? I would think so. Just the fact that they're stuck on the island all alone is a beastie. The fact the characters are only boys is significant. The young boys are only half-formed, perched between civilization and savagery, so embodying the novel's central conflict. Ooh, love that. Kind of hard to read, but a challenge indeed. Love how that rhymed.
I think it was written in 1954.
I think it was written in 1954. Thank you. Thank you! I like how the writer describes the environment. It reminds me of Luís de Camões, a Portuguese writer that used to take chapter 1 to describe only one house. I feel so bad for Piggy. It's literally what's keeping them alive with hope since he created the fire. Wow. I genuinely thought Piggy was the most sensible at the beginning and then showed how he bowed to the eventual leader. Well, he had to. Think about it. Even when they saw his glasses, he had no choice in giving them over. They were ripped off his face and he was cast to the side. It's a perfect example of how society choosing and following blindly a leader that sometimes is not so appropriate. But we're floating between two leaders. We're floating between the leader that Piggy is kind of pushing, Ralph, and Ralph, because he has the conch, was given that position of power, but then also Jack, who's demanding it and believes that he's the best to do so, which is an interesting thing. What happens when someone who thinks they deserve it takes over? It was written around World War I, World War II. It was written after World War II, 1954. So it was written during the Korean War for the United States, but in Great Britain, that was a time of rebuild after World War II. So scary how in such a short time they passed from civilized children to savages. Tessa, everyone's saying hey, T.
Hi.
Everyone's saying hi.
Hey.
I hate Jack. He makes me so angry. I'm interested by Jack. Generally, on an island, I think he's one of the most toxic people you can have, but there is a value to what he can do, and that's what people see. The value that he presents up front with the priorities, and then eventually, I think how that's going to change as priorities change. As you can say, his priorities like, we want meat. He keeps saying that. All right, guys, I got behind in the comments, so I'm skipping all the way to the bottom. Okay. I think we do have some female voice in this book. If you think about it, Piggy always quotes his aunt, so we have some kind of female perspective. Well, I think within that is some sort of like motherly presence. Well, my auntie says we should be careful. It's always like a warning. And I think there's something about it that because it's coming from an adult and the way that Piggy says it, they purposely seem to be ignoring it. I don't know. I feel bad for Piggy, too. Because he's a toxic person surrounded by people like Piggy, do you think that he'll change by the end? I don't know. That's a good question. I never read the end. I'm worried that Roger is the beast. I don't know why. Interesting. I did not get that. I think the beast... Think about it. The beast, for me, was brought up right by the child, right when they were about to create the fire. They were about to make this first step. And it was right after Jack kind of took over. Remember... Ralph was holding the conch, and he said, we need to make a fire. And then Jack just stood up and he goes, let's go make a fire. And everyone went and followed him. So it was the first serious break in the society that they had started to create. We're going to follow these rules. We need rules. We're going to follow the conch. But then Jack just runs off. So after that first break, this little kid comes to something about a beast. I think that type of de-evolution of the society they're trying to have, that breaking of the rules and stuff, I think that all comes as like a foreshadowing for later. So I think the beastie is present, but I don't think of the beastie as something other. I think of it as their own fraction within themselves. I think it's definitely a foreshadowing. There's definitely something coming, and I think it's interesting that we were warned about the beastie before they almost lit the whole island on fire. And then the next time when Jack and Ralph have a power struggle, they talk about the beastie again. Every time that there's a rift like that, the beastie seems to come into play, which I think it furthers my what I think it is, and it's that foreshadowing of the breaking down. Going down to the bottom again, sorry. My dad read this book a few weeks before he passed away, and he really liked it. I'm so happy we're reading it in the book club. He would have loved it. That's amazing. Awesome. Well, I'm glad we're reading it again. If you have any insights that you or your father came up with, let us know. Can't wait to read them. I think the moment Jack failed to kill the pig is a pivotal moment in the book. He vows to not let it happen again, and that's when he starts to change. Because in himself, he saw a weakness, I think, or what he felt was a weakness. And it's that very human thing of death. Are you ready to take that step? Killing another animal is a very difficult thing. It's taking a life, which I think is inhuman. Humans are meant to create life, not destroy it. And that's why things like war and stuff are very, very contrary to like psychological things. So I think that act of killing wasn't done because they hadn't gotten there yet. I think that was a very pivotal moment in the book. Very awesome for you to pick that up. I want to know what Jack is thinking because there must be a reason why he's doing the things. It's very interesting. It is, but Jack's line of thinking comes from him wanting to have power, I think. What do you think about the concept of fear in this book? Do you agree with it? Well, I think there's different types of fear. There's Piggy's fear, which is the fear of not being able to survive, and that drives him in a very positive manner. It drives him to ask serious questions and make them consider their life. And Piggy's really the voice of reality. Him being like, we need to come up with shelters before we make a fire. If it rains, we have no fire and no shelter. You know, Piggy's the voice of reason. He's the voice of society that lingers with his auntie over his shoulder. And how all the boys immediately turn from that and don't want to listen to him until they're like, okay, well, we got to do this now. I think it's very interesting. And the concept of fear kind of saves them because they're like, you're right, we have to eat. We're afraid of not eating. We're afraid of not having shelter. But at the same time, the fear of the beasties will drive them, I think, to finding people that use strength as a manner of power, or use the ability to kill as a manner of power. You know, I vaguely remember this book from high school, but I remember what I've read so far. I feel like that's going to be, they've kind of foreshadowed it, I think. It's all very biblical. The beast is a symbol of evil, and the island is a symbol of Eden and its sanctity. Ooh, cool. Can you what else? Keep going down that line, Miss Sarah G. I think the fire can be seen as a symbol of the boy's interest in maintaining ties to civilization. Interesting. What about the child with the birthmark in his cheek? Is he dead? Well, I think this is also the crushing reality. There's a reality to him might being dead, but the boys, after they acknowledge that he might be gone, they didn't acknowledge it again. In a way, they're choosing their own reality. They're like, we don't want to deal with that. That's scary. They haven't talked about it. And they kind of leave us to think, so they're in this Eden, but this Eden has very real consequences. It's interesting. It's interesting to see how these kids create their own anxiety. Boys are the beasts against each other? Maybe. The book makes us question things like, what is the true tendency of human beings in a group? Is order or chaos? Is it possible to live without laws and authorities? Hey, T?
Yeah?
What did you say about fire again?
Oh, yeah. About the glasses?
Yeah.
I thought that...
Because I think that feeds into this question. What is the true tendency of human beings in a group? Is it order or chaos? Is it possible to live without laws and authorities?
Oh, well, this is a little bit off of that, but it all feeds into it, is that the glasses seem to represent intelligence and scientific research. So, at the... Piggy being one of the more intelligent...
Can you guys hear Tessa?
No. What? Here, I'll come and sit with you in a second. I'll explain it if you want.
All right, so yeah, Tessa's going to come explain that in a second. I think it's a kind of purgatory, and they're simply trapped on the island. Maybe after the plane crash. I think so too. I think that yeah, you guys heard her. Okay, cool. She's gonna come through in a second to explain that. But I think that's something there that the Piggy's glasses symbolize science and technology, and using them, they were able to create a tool that will help them survive. But in doing so, they're also creating something extremely destructive. I think that's something we could talk about, right, T?
Totally.
Tessa's gonna join us. Tessa, you're a legend. I just realized that we're hunting pigs, and all of those boys in power hate Piggy. I wonder if this is foreshadowing connection to wanting to end the knowledge and fear that Piggy represents. Well, Piggy presents fear because of his knowledge. His knowledge makes them realize that they're in a lot more trouble than they think. And that knowledge is dangerous. That understanding is dangerous. And when you think in society, a lot of the times it's not the smartest answers that get passed, it's the ones that make people feel the safest. There is something to that. Oh, listen to this. Piggy's glasses are Piggy's way of seeing reality. He's the only one that can think rationally and see the full scope of their situation. Interesting. So why do they, when they take them from him, what is that symbolism there? What does that mean? That they're not capable of seeing his reality? They're only really capable of using his reality as a tool for themselves? What about the scar in the island? Do you think that's symbolism? Let's ask that question to everyone. What about the scar? How do you guys feel how they keep referring to the scar? I think it's the one made by the plane, like the plane dove in. So I think that's what I think the scar is. It's the scar from the accident. Humans getting here and trying to figure it out.
And humans leaving their mark.
And humans leaving their mark. Good stuff, T. I agree. Are we going to meet the yoga teacher? All right, cat's out of the bag. Tessa's the yoga teacher. Tessa's the yoga teacher. It'd be really awkward if you weren't. Oh, but she was. I think the beast is not a physical beast. I think it's a symbol representation of their own human fear. But I think it's also a symbol of the impending danger on them, living on this wild island that if they don't tighten up, it's going to get weird. Thank you, guys. Tessa's really cool. So Ralph brings out the best of the group, While Jack is so violent, he rushes into dangerous things. It's true that lack of thought is dangerous. What about the shell they found? There's definitely a lot of religious undertones, yes. Tess Birdo, T. They don't want Piggy to see reality. I think they're afraid, and naturally. I mean, I think the first scene is so telling. Piggy's already starting to reel. He's already starting to say, what are we going to do? Where are we going to go? And the first thing that Ralph does is get naked and jump in the water and start to enjoy it. Piggy represents one side. I think Jack represents the other, and Ralph kind of hovers in the middle. And then the three of them create this triangle of like disagreement and agreement. It's a very interesting thing. And now Tessa's going to jump in.
Hey guys. And I think Simon is also a part of that too, of the civilization and then savagery, and then Simon's somewhere in the middle because he seems to be pretty loyal to both of them in a way.
Okay, let's read this. I think the scars from the accident and also its symbolic emotional scar that has been inflicted on the boys by society. Wow, that's pretty cool. Because in a way, the only way that they can build society is based on the society that they know. They're not thinking of another way to do things.
But I also I think the reason they're kids is because they haven't been completely affected by their society yet.
But there's still, someone mentioned that also by being kids, they're still connected to like the animalistic side.
Right, exactly. They're closer to savagery than we would be as adults.
Exactly.
So they can be shaped still by that and be influenced and kind of create their own reality there.
They haven't been in society long enough to have society save them, but they've been in society long enough to maybe see where the rifts might happen, like this changes in power, but they haven't been there long enough to
really understand
understand it. The conch reminds me of SpongeBob. The conch. But even then, the conch was a symbol of power. It was value that was given to Ralph. Remember that Jack didn't want to listen to him until he saw that he had the conch. And that he was the one creating that sound. And that's what validated Ralph as a leader, was that he had something that was seen as something other that was like powerful. Right?
Right.
And that Piggy respected him for it, and therefore everyone else was like, okay, well this guy and these two, like the leaders were already...
Yeah, that conch symbolizes
law
and order.
And then I think Ralph is influenced a lot by Piggy's rational ideas. Well, I think, unlike Jack, who we've seen does not give a shit about Piggy, Ralph listens to him. And Ralph does allow him to have a voice, where other people don't.
Well, because I think Ralph must recognize the intelligence that Piggy has. Oh, this is going off the glasses thing, symbolizing intelligence and the scientific side of things.
Read out loud.
Maybe each character is a symbol of... I'm like, my eyes are so bad. Maybe each character is a symbol of different things, like Piggy is the symbol of intelligence. Exactly.
Yes.
And we talked about whether Piggy... I think Piggy is the symbol of that, but also his glasses particularly because they can be taken off of his face and be used by somebody else. So, like, he has this knowledge, but no one will listen to him until a different vessel, like, spouts
Think
out
about
that
it.
exact
They
same
didn't even wait for him to give his glasses. They took them from him to be used as a tool, and then the minute they didn't need them anymore, they tossed them back.
But we see that so often where the face of something is not really the person that the information
is coming
from, right? Yeah, so until, like, say a politician that has a very, attractive, charismatic exterior, it will be listened to more so than maybe Piggy would, even though he has the ideas that would help him survive.
Which, even that is a huge comment on society.
Yeah, it's really...
So then Ortega Mariana said, yes, but society we know is rotten. They learn from us and are not closer to be better. They represent our own fears. And it's like they are monsters of our own nightmares. The fact that you're tying nightmares into it is interesting too, because that was something that we saw earlier. We were talking about that earlier today.
But yeah, I think it's cool because, like, we just because they're further away from the society that they grew up with doesn't mean that that's right either. Like, we talk about this all the time. Why do we live the way we do? Why is this society like this, where we live and where we grew up?
And if we had a choice to create a society, would we do it? We would definitely do it differently, I think.
So.
Right? And they call the younger ones the little ones, even though, as readers, we see them all as too young to handle their own lives, similar to a lot of themes of society when the book was written. Wow. Very good insight. I totally agree. I think Ralph is kind of jealous of Piggy because Piggy is so smart. Well, I think there's a power that Ralph knows that Piggy has because of his intelligence, but because everyone listens to Ralph and everyone listens to Jack, Piggy doesn't have that power. And if he were to start getting it, things could change. But I don't know if it'd be for the worse. I think it'd be for the better.
Yeah, if we listen to more people like Piggy.
But then again, I think Piggy's lack of ability to take risks puts him behind as well, because Piggy didn't want to climb up the mountain, but they did, and then they found a place to light a fire.
Although, didn't he wanted to join, didn't he?
But he was mad that everyone just went and did it without thinking about it, and or listening to him. Piggy's very smart. Ralph's inner voice makes us aware of what should happen compared to what does. Ralph is a thinker, and Jack seems to be very emotional and very like, let's just get it done. But his aggression and his desire for violence is something in society which has been given power before.
It's interesting, too, because we won't get to see what would happen if women were involved or girls were there. But, like, I do think that reactive, impulsive decision-making versus, like, taking time to think about it and then act might be a little different if there were girls there.
Well, I think that's even a firmer comment. To me, it's like a good choice that there weren't. The world had just gotten out of 2 world wars when he wrote this book. And he felt that who was in power at the time? Every country that was in power, it was a man in power. And this whole world, think about it, 65 million people died during World War II. Society at a time was being commented on by a bunch of different books. Think about it. In this book club alone, we've read 4 books that were written in the 1950s. Slaughterhouse-Five, To Kill a Mockingbird, this one, Breakfast of Champions. No, Breakfast of Champions was written in the 70s. Lord of the Flies, and 1984. So we've seen how a lot of people were trying to analyze why society got to that point. And I think it's really interesting that we've read 4 different books that are from this time period, all kind of commenting on society in similar ways, too.
Well, yeah, just the lack,
It's violence.
the lack of... Are we still talking about the lack of women?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, how, like, that's been a theme, and how all of the
women
themes
in
have been
power.
war and death and all of these terrible things. But then again, we have nothing else to compare it to. No other society to change it to. Especially at that time. So that's why I think the boys are falling into the pitfalls as well. Because they only know one society, like we've said. Tessa is changing the whole view of the book, and I'm loving it. I think it's interesting, though, because I think a similar outcomes would occur with adults. The society shaped them no matter the age. As young boys, in that time, they're taught to be aggressive. Yes, but I think that's a comment. It's like, look, these kids are creating the only society that they know. They're literally recreating it. So as adults, we can look at them and be like, oh, they don't know what they're doing, blah, blah, blah. But then again, as adults, we've obviously haven't done anything different because we've showed them that society. So separating it with an age allows us to look at it and analyze it in a more, almost like...
You mean you can separate yourself from
Yeah, we can look at them and be like, oh, they're just kids. They should learn these things. They should be better at this. But then again, we have our own obvious example of the society we've created as adults, and it's not that way. It's very similar to the ones that kids... It's literally a mirror.
You can have a more unbiased view by looking at something that you think is not you.
And less than, because they're kids.
Yeah, and so you can judge them with ease, I guess. And then you start to realize, oh, shoot, that's what we did.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's one of what William... He's like... I think William Golding is literally saying, like, hey, you guys realize this is what we're doing. Like, you guys are all maybe criticizing these kids, but they're just recreating the reality they know. And that's the one that we continue to live.
It'd be interesting when we get a little further, too, to talk about where we really go in this book.
Oh, I want to talk about one thing, because I forgot to mention it. The introduction to my copy of the book has a very interesting thing just about the history of the novel, and specifically about what William Golding is trying to do with this novel. So what I want to do is when we finish the book, we're going to have one extra live, whether it be on the last day of the book or after, to talk about just the introduction. We'll have read the whole book, and then we'll get to use the introduction to analyze what we've just read, so everyone knows. But Golding goes into the importance of the novel and the different types from... It'll be cool. Sorry, I don't know why I want to talk about that. I've never really read into war books, but it's kind of changing. Well, the reason why I think war books are interesting is because I think war is the absolute worst thing that humanity ever created and ever does to itself. But through that, we can really study a lot of things that are right on the surface of that, and things that create that, and humanity's desire for that in a weird way, because it's a pattern in a very sad way. And we need to figure that out before we can move forward. And reading war books also helps you understand the different perspectives. Think about it. We've gotten... Interestingly enough, Catch-22 was also written in the 50s, but we've only read war books from a perspective that's not commonly American. These are American war books written anti-war, and that's not the American perspective most of the time of World War II. So we've written like a counter-movement. We've been reading counter-movements to that to really analyze society at that time. Remember, Vonnegut said it in Breakfast of Champions. Armistice Day is sacred, Veterans Day is not. That's what he said, and he's trying to say that Veterans Day is glorifying war in a way that Armistice Day was saying it's not about that.
And a lot of time, the information that we get about these wars are from the few people that are orchestrating it that aren't there on the ground with everybody. So we talked about that, right? Mm-hmm. So just like getting this glorified view of it, and then hearing, okay, well, these are the people who were there, and this is what the reality of it is.
What was it?
Something in the sink.
Oh, that's weird.
Yeah, so like taking off that glamour of this and not just talking about like what it feels like to win, but like what the reality of the war was actually like.
Cool. Kenzie Courtney, I'm on your page. I think we'll talk about why he wrote this book, what events inspired and stuff at the end of the book. I think we'll do that on the same day that we talk about the introduction, because I think that's something that'll be very, very cool to have. And a cool discussion, especially the way that they describe the novel and the importance of such. Seeing that we've read 10 novels together, I think it's going to be a very good conversation for us to have. Have you read Millennium or the Shadowhunter series? Actually, both Tessa and I read the entire Shadowhunter series. We read all 6 books. Tessa read all of them too.
Speaking of like being able to see issues in your society that feels isolated from you, I think Shadowhunters, that's one of my favorite things about that, is like you can be like, oh well, look at the werewolves and Shadowhunters fighting and blah blah blah, and you'd be like, we would never do that, and then you're like, this is an exact parallel to us in our world.
And that's why it's so important.
Yeah, that's why I love books like that.
That's why art is so important, like Hamlet says, to hold a mirror up to nature. But Brecht says it's not a mirror, it's a hammer with which to shape it. I think you have to be both. We'll talk about that some other time.
Yeah.
That's a longer conversation.
That is a conversation.
Hey, pal, you are awesome.
Aw.
Hey, Pop, you're awesome, man. Mr. Rosende making an appearance. I can't study history without thinking of Catch-22. You can't study history without thinking of the art that was made in that time. Ever. History happens, and the art that's being made is mimetic to that time. It's telling us of that time. That's why the art being made now is so important. It's meant to not only reflect our own reality, but to teach those in the past and in the future who we are. And where we've moved to and where we're still going.
Yeah.
Remember, like we talked about with Slaughterhouse-5, our eyes aren't facing forward, they're facing backwards. And we're being propelled forward. So we're only seeing what we've done to enable to lead us in the direction we're going.
And so important to know where we came from so that we can make better decisions.
Exactly. And that's why books like this are important. They're studying and analyzing society in a way. Okay. My dad says both are sacred. I believe that Veterans Day is to honor that answer the call of the nation, but not war itself. I agree with you, Pop. Both are sacred. I think in Vonnegut's perspective, he was trying to make the difference that at times can be perpetuated through the idea of the veteran, the glorification of war, and not of the call to arms and the call to the nation itself. I think he's trying to make that difference because sometimes they get muddled and they get brought together. And I think he was really trying to say, like, look at the difference between how these days are spread forward. What do you think about that, Pop?
He should be here telling us.
I wish so. I wish. Maybe we should do that. One day we'll have a live. We'll talk about a certain book, maybe one of General Rosende's, and we'll have him on the live with us. I think that'd be a very cool thing. War should not be glorified. There is no glory in war. Remember that wars are an extension of politics. True. Yes, Mr. Rosende. Is that Heidi next to you? Oh, uh-oh, she found Simon.
Uh-oh.
Do the chapter titles do anything for you? The Sound of the Shell, Painted Faces and Long Hair, Huts on the Beach, Fire on the Mountain. The Sound of the Shell, Fire on the Mountain, Huts on the Beach. I need to read more into that. I need to think more about that.
You guys talked about the one of the first things that the humans did once they got to this place of nature is destroy it, right? I think I overheard you talking about
Say
that.
Again?
The fire that happens quite early on. Like, basically you have this beautiful... They talk about how beautiful the island it has, resources, and it has, like, this nature that humans get to, and immediately they burn it. They destroy it.
It's like literally I have to go back and read Vonnegut. All right, Pop, you do that, and then we'll read another Vonnegut, and in that one we'll all have a conversation about it. But what you said, it's interesting. The minute that technology was brought to humans, what's the first thing they did? The idea of technology brought to them, the first thing they did is destroy everything. Instead of like what Piggy said, is we had to be smarter about how we used our technology. Mm-hmm. Another comment on society. I've not read Mother Night. I think my dad should read Breakfast of Champions as well. I think he would find it very interesting. I actually bought Breakfast of Champions for my dad a couple of years ago. So I know he has it.
I know, I'm like, is this a symbol?
The fire is a symbol of power, and I think it's really important that Piggy is the one who wants the power, the glasses to create it. The intelligent one is the one that understanding, but then it's abused by the populace to then destroy nature when it can do more. Interesting. Wow. Am I the only one that thinks it's weird that Jack knows how to hunt, but he doesn't know how to turn on the fire? That's an interesting idea. Well, there's something innately human with hunting. We are animals and we are apex predators. We're not as fast as certain things or as strong, but we've always been able to use our intellect to propel us forward and then become the apex predator on our planet. But that's an interesting idea, though. I don't know if it's hopeless optimism, but I believe I hope most of us refrain from cruel acts because we know it's wrong, not because we're scared to be punished. And I think that majority of society is what keeps society in check. And anything that happens outside of that are the outliers. I think of heinous crimes. Those people are on the outside refusing to live by the rules that we all agree to live by. I think that's why these attacks that happen with vans are so scary. Because, like the one that happened in Toronto a couple weeks ago, because of the fact that that person is choosing to break a rule that we all know works for everyone's safety. We know that there are 3,000-pound killing machines driving by us every day. But we all make a code, and we all make a creed and an agreement to be respectful and understanding and take caution when driving these vehicles. That's why we have to get registered to drive them. That's why we have to do all these tests and make sure that we can, because it's something we say, and when someone breaks that, it's very scary. And
what they're saying too is like, do you think that they're following the rules because they are afraid of being punished, or because they know that it's morally what they should do?
And I think that's the line that everyone toes every day. Am I following this rule because I'm afraid of being punished, or because it's the right thing to do? Mm-hmm. I think that's a very scary question just within humanity.
Yes.
That everyone asks every day. Maybe not everyone asks every day, but it comes up. Someone's like, wait, why did I just wait for the little walking man to tell me to cross the street when there were no cars coming?
Right.
Little things like that make me have those moments where I'm like, whoa, why does society live the way it does? But it's all because those little rules lead into the bigger rules that keep everyone safe.
Yeah. But you do walk that line of being like, am I just following rules blindly, or do I understand why I'm following the rules?
And that is why we read. Do I follow rules blindly, or do I understand why I follow certain rules?
Yeah, I see people, like in New York, people don't watch the lights. They just cross when it's safe. People in LA, from what I've seen, watch the lights, and even if a car is coming towards them, they cross because it's the walk signal. I'm like...
So I think there's a happy medium that needs to find, like both coasts are doing their own thing. I bet in the Midwest they're perfect at it.
Right.
I think that the book is trying to display the dangerous cycle of cruelty in society. The boys are corrupt by their society, and then when put into a pure environment, they corrupt nature.
Yeah, I'm excited about the theme of nature versus...
But that's an interesting, societal corruption versus nature corruption, or are they corrupted by the nature that's within them? Are they corrupted by the nature around them? Like, they have to kind of... I don't know, do they have to devolve into like a savagery in order to survive on an island without societal rules, and they don't know who's in power, and they're all just boys? They're not adults. They're not by no means grown up. They don't have... And I mean, even the idea when Piggy landed and he's like, oh my God, what are we going to do? Are there more people? Should we find out their names? And then Jack's like, Ralph is like, I don't give a crap. I'm going to get naked and go swimming because they're kids. Like if an adult were to crash on a desert island, the first thing they'd be like is, oh my gosh, I'm Tom Hanks.
Oh no.
What do I have to do? What did Tom Hanks do in that movie? Oh, he found water. He made shelter. He made a friend.
Yeah.
Nature is really important. Okay, guys, yes, Tessa is a very smart girl. So we're going to scroll down to the bottom again. Do they know each other before the island? Yes, as far as I'm concerned, they all did. But it's weird that Piggy was like, where's all the other boys? They knew there were a bunch of boys. Tom Hanks.
Do you notice the kids think like adults?
They think like adults, or they think like how they think adults think? I think there's a difference there.
I
think Piggy thinks like adults, but he also thinks by the way he thinks adult things because of the way his aunt kind of controlled him. You can't run because you have asthma. You can't do this because of this. You can't even do this because of this. So he has that paranoid where some kids probably had looser, growing ups.
Yeah, but we're going to start to see, we've already had the loss of innocence, and they're forced to mature a bit. Also,
I think Kenzie Courtney's bringing up, they all attended the same school, but some died in the plane crash. They don't talk about the death at all. Think about how far away they try to talk about death. That one kid that they don't know, with the scar on his face, they don't know if he got stuck in the fire down there. They don't talk about it. Yeah. Death is a concept that I think is something more mature. As a kid, you don't understand death at all. I don't understand death.
When you're that far away from it, hopefully, typically as that young of a person, the concept of death is very strange. So maybe that's why.
And that's why I think that desire for safety after having something like a crash where they maybe saw death and can't really talk about it, that desire for safety is really what puts Jack in power. Jack presents himself as a strong, aggressive guy, so they think he can keep us safe. And then Ralph's calmness and his conch and that power makes them feel like they're going to be safe. Safety is a big concern.
Yeah.
And that's why the little ones have nightmares, but they try to, they all kind of stick together and they follow the leaders, the people that seem like they can keep them safe. I think that's a cool thing. And then as the hunting goes on, that's another thing. We need to eat. And if you can provide for us, that gives him power in a way. Mm-hmm. And to say that he can kill, I think that's another thing too. There's a lot of interesting questions that we bring up with society here. There's less than 15 minutes left. Thank you very much. It's like the concept of super low by Freud. Can you explain that, Rita? I'm not familiar with that. This book seems to never get old. It owns the values we need, and we seem to already forget them. We need those values in order to survive. Yes, this is a deep story. Absolutely. They stop counting the little ones so they don't really have to think about death and its proximity. The little ones are all grouped into one category. They don't have to count them. There aren't a number. They're just all the little ones. The ones with names are the ones that are important. They're the ones that have deemed themselves a person.
And, people in power versus the rest of the population.
I think the acknowledgement of death is a survival mechanism. If they acknowledge others may have died, they have to acknowledge that they too can die and that they're not safe at all. Triforce of Dragons, I missed your handle. Coming in with an awesome comment.
Yeah, that's a great comment.
Great comment. And I think that's definitely something that, I feel as kids, you stay away from thinking about that. Think about it. They don't even want to talk about the beast. If there was a beast on an island, they'd be like, all right, we have to figure out what the hell that is. But no, they're not going to talk about it. They're going to pretend like it doesn't exist.
And it's, as a survival mechanism to ignore that and to be able to feel that you can survive, but also then maybe feeling like if you're in power, do you need to ignore these things in order to not have chaos explode amongst the people?
And then think about how much in our intelligence communities today we're not told because of the idea of keeping society at a level thought. Everything's easy.
All freak out at maybe what the reality of the situation is.
Even as adults, we refrain from talking about death, but also what scares us. Yeah, we don't talk about our fears. They're ignoring the things they may have lost almost, but also because fear in our society means weakness. Right? Even now, they think Piggy's afraid of everything. They think he's weak, but really, Piggy's just thinking of all the possible things they need to think about. Hello, howdy. Any idea what we're reading next? Yes, actually. Tessa, can you grab it for me? Where did I put it?
What is it?
It's the book by your lady.
I'm a lady.
Atwood.
Oh.
It might be over here, babe.
Oh, by my lady.
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
Yo, girl.
Handmaids?
Yeah. So, we're going to leave the discussion at that right meow. We will talk more in depth next time. I'm a little behind, so we were reading up to chapter 6. Chapter 6, so we're going to read... chapter 8, or should we read more? Because that's only 40 pages. This week's going to be a busy week for me, guys, so I think we're going to keep it shorter. But we're going to read up to chapter 9, I think, right? Or is that going to be too many pages? 190 to chapter 10, that's about 80 pages. If we go back to chapter 9... It's a long chapter.
Well, yeah, some of these chapters are super long.
Sorry, guys.
Are you telling them what the next?
Yeah, I'm trying to figure it out. Hold on. Okay.
Oh, sorry, no,
So we're going to read up to chapter 9, page 178. Chapter 9 is entitled A View to Death. We're going to read up to that point. Do not read through chapter 9. The next book, let me see if I can find it real quick. Tessa, talk to them.
I don't know what to say. Hey, guys. Jay just sent a text.
Probably saying, like, what time he's going to... can you text him from your phone and tell him to come here?
Yes, but my phone is... right here.
I know I brought that book here, right? It's not at your place.
I don't think so. I honestly didn't see you with it.
Well, I brought it with my poetry books. And my poetry books.
It's a really awesome book.
She's Canadian, right? The writer?
I should know this. I didn't think she... Let me Google it really quick.
Okay, I will say this. Okay. This year, this specific writer won a Canadian Screen Award.
Oh, well then...
For her work because of this book.
She is Canadian.
She is Canadian. I thought it was smart to pick a Canadian as the first female writer that we read.
Sorry.
So the next book we read after this is The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood.
I'm so excited to read it.
After that, I will have a longer list, but so you guys know, if you want to start getting that book, Tessa will be reading along with us. It's one of her favorite shows.
Yeah, I'm obsessed with that miniseries.
So we're probably going to do that. So, up to page 178 or chapter 9. Don't read chapter 9, read to chapter 9. Then we're going to read Handmaid's Tale, so start figuring that out. Talking to everyone. Getting the book if you need it. Rosende reads PDFs. Rita, you know what to do with that.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your help once again. Yeah, so thank you guys so much for a really insightful conversation. I can't wait to keep reading in this book.
You guys are awesome.
It's a fascinating book about society. I think a lot of the books we've read have already lent us to really diving into this book and having a cool analysis of it, as very much seen by our conversation. Hopefully Tessa can join us again next week, because I think she's a good addition to the crew, a good addition to the book club. I have to wake up at 4:30 tomorrow morning to shoot for Shadowhunters episode 20. You guys are going to be mind blown. I can't really say a lot about it.
You want to?
I want to say so much. Yes, the book is The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood. That's right. I'm drinking water. Don't worry about it. Tessa's making sure I stay hydrated.
I did.
We're all good.
I brought him a huge jug of water.
So we will see you guys next week. My friend is going to be in town. I don't know if he's going to be on the live with us, but you'll get to meet him. His name is Javen. He's an amazing artist and musician. We'll talk to him a little bit. Right now, that's planned for Saturday, so our friends from Australia could come hang in and hang out with us. But it might happen on Sunday, so like always, wait for Friday for me to post about it. But I can't wait to talk with you more about this book, guys. Thank you so much. Lord of the Flies, remember page 178 or up to chapter 9. Margaret Atwood's Handmaid's Tale is next. Thank you guys so much for today. 'Twas amazing. And we will see you guys next time. Peace out, guys.